Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another week of our Cybersecurity Executive Brief. I'm Cory Wolff, Director of Offensive Security here at Risk 360, and today is yet another special day. So you might remember last week we talked about how our CEO, Christian Hyatt, released his Security Team Operating System book. Proud to say that has hit #1 in computer and network security. So congratulations to Christian. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, I definitely recommend that you do. It's available everywhere, but check out the ebook on Amazon, Security Team Operating System, How to Build an Unstoppable Team. Congrats, Christian. So with that, let's jump right back in to what we always start with every week, which is ransomware activity. Summer slowdown is in full effect. So only 44 victims were posted at leak sites last week. We do a ransomware analysis that we put out every Monday. There's a link in the description in the comments if you're interested in checking out our most recent ransomware analysis from the week starting June 2nd. So the week of June 2nd, there were only 44 victims posted to leak sites. That is a relatively small number of victims. Typically, we see anywhere from 80 to 120, 110 victims posted to these leak sites every week. So 44 is a pretty small number in comparison. That's definitely a slow week, right? And the other thing is that these are just victims that we know of. So some victims might not be posted to leak sites if they paid, and the ransomware crew agreed to not disclose that they had compromised that particular victim. So that's what we know of. 44, Black Basta was the most active with 7 victims posted to their leak site. You might remember them. They are thought to be members of the Conti, and some people say Revil, some say R-Evil. I say Revil just because it's easier. But Black Basta is thought to be members of the Conti and Revil crews who are now no longer active. Conti was, at the time, which Black Basta probably is now, Black Basta prompted a CISA advisory in May because they've ransomwared over 500 organizations worldwide in a year and a half. So Black Basta is very successful, but you might remember Conti from being one of the most successful before Black Basta, to where they did about $200 to $250 million in revenue. The Conti group did in 2022. Christian Hyatt and I did a video that you should check out. It's on our YouTube called Inside Ransomware, which if you're interested in learning more about how Conti operated in 2022, its business structure, everything else, I highly recommend you check that out. But these are small businesses of 50 people or so, 75 people, 100 people that have payroll, that have serious business issues. But anyways, I digress. Black Basta thought to be Conti and Revil members from before. The other big thing was the FBI provided keys to Lockbit. So this is thought to come from the Operation Kronos task force, which took down much of Lockbit's infrastructure in earlier this year. I want to say it was maybe February. Operation Kronos took down pretty much all of their infrastructure. Lockbit has come back here and there. We do think that they're active again for a short time there. Seemed as though they were making reposts, so they were just posting old victims on their leak site to make it appear as though they're active. Excuse me. But that no longer seems to be the case, as last week they did post an organization which was confirmed to be ransomware. I believe it was London Drugs in Canada. I believe that was the organization. You can check me on that. But slow week for victims being announced, and yeah, so ransomware continues to go. The big thing that we're going to talk about today is Snowflake. So Snowflake, you might have seen in the news, there are instances of Snowflake that are just getting wrecked left and right. So as of the time of writing, at least 165 organizations have been targeted. And so at the end of the day, what this really is Snowflake, this is not this is not a misconfiguration or an issue with Snowflake. And Snowflake has been pretty adamant about that when they talk through these, when they talk through this particular incident. It's not a misconfiguration or vulnerability in Snowflake. What's actually happening is the threat actors known as UNC 5537, who are thought to be primarily North American based. The threat actors have credentials to different Snowflake tenants. So every client that signs up for Snowflake, they get their own individual tenant with their own URLs, your own login, your own user management, etc. And so what the threat actors from UNC 5537 have done is they've accumulated a number of different Snowflake user credentials for various different tenants. The two big ones that came out at first were Ticketmaster and Santander Bank, which we talked about this last Wednesday. But the threat actors essentially going through and logging into Snowflake instances with credentials that they got. Mandiant in their report seems to think that it's based on, where did it go? It seems to think that it's based on info stealer logs. Here we go. So Mandiant identified that the threat actor used Snowflake customer credentials that were previously exposed via several info stealer malware variants, including a whole bunch of them that I'm not going to read off for you right now. So look at this. So further, according to Mandiant and Snowflake's analysis, at least 79.7% of the accounts leveraged by the threat actor in this campaign had prior credential exposure. So what does that mean? That means that users are reusing passwords. That's what that means. That's Mandiant's fancy way of saying users keep using the same password over and over again. At one point or another, listen, it's 2024. Our data's all been in a breach somewhere. It's just the fact of life nowadays. And so we need to make sure that we change our passwords, because I guarantee you, if you've been using the same password for the past, I'll even say 2 or 3 years, it's probably in a breach database somewhere from a leak site. I'm sorry, from some website or application that might have been breached, and the threat actors exfiltrated all the data and then put it out there for the world to have, either for sale or for free. But it's password reuse. And let's see, where do they call it out here? So at the time of the compromise, the account did not have multi-factor authentication enabled. So this group is going after Snowflake instances for which they have acquired credentials in one way or another, whether it's through info stealer logs, like Mandiant talks about, or we're the offensive security team. As part of our work, when we do red teams, we will actually look through breach data and see if we can find old passwords. We're not the only ones that can do that. Threat actors do that routinely. So the point is that they could have gathered these credentials through multiple means, info stealers being the biggest one called out right now. But the fact of the matter is that as a threat actor, it is not difficult at all to get credentials. It's not that hard. It really isn't. This particular threat actor had a concerted effort on Snowflake, which is why you're seeing all these Snowflake tenants getting popped. But the fact of the matter is, it's not hard for threat actors to gain credentials of some sort and use them. So that's what's happening. They gathered breached credentials in some way, whether through info stealer logs or other breach data. They targeted specifically Snowflake. In fact, they have their own tool set, which makes me uncomfortable saying it, but they have their own tool set that they call RapeFlake, which Mandiant is tracking as Frostbite. But this is a concerted effort on Snowflake. They got the credentials. They built their own utility being tracked as Frostbite to copy data and exfiltrate data to make it easier for them. So what the threat actors are doing is they're literally logging into the Snowflake UI, known as Snowsite, and seeing if the credentials work. If the credentials work, they then go offline and use a command line utility that they call RapeFlake, which is being tracked as Frostbite, and gather all the data, copy tables of data, and then exfiltrate that data. So they do have custom tooling that they built specifically for this purpose. And again, it's a concerted effort against Snowflake. It is not a vulnerability in Snowflake. It is the threat actors going after breach credentials in accounts that do not have multi-factor authentication turned on. There's a link in the description to this research here from Mandiant and Google, which I suggest you check out. There are some threat hunting queries that you can run and different things that you can do to look through log entries for Snowflake to see if maybe you were a victim of this. Again, at the time of, as of right now, it's about 165 organizations that have been confirmed to be targeted by this particular threat actor. We do Snowflake security configuration reviews all the time, and MFA is one of the biggest things that we see being not enabled on Snowflake accounts. Snowflake does have a very good security overview and best practices document. Again, it's linked in the show notes and comments and everywhere else. They do have really good documentation about what to do. But what it boils down to is really, number one, enable MFA. And to be kind of fair, Snowflake doesn't make this super easy, but enable MFA. I shouldn't say super easy, super clear, right? So enable MFA and then restrict access to the Snowflake tenant through the network security protections put in place here with your Snowflake configuration. So basically, you can allow list IPs that can actually even talk to the Snowflake instance. Those two things were done, these threat actors wouldn't have much to talk about. In fact, I'm sure, I don't even know, there's a couple thousand organizations that use Snowflake. And there's a specific reason why the threat actors are going after accounts with no MFA and no network segmentation in place. So those are the two big things that when we're doing configuration reviews for Snowflake, that we see that MFA isn't enabled and that access to the tenant isn't restricted in some way. So make sure you do those two things. Again, this is a really good document put out by Snowflake. You should check it out. There's a link in the description. So yeah, Snowflake, it's a pretty big one that's making its rounds throughout the news here. Initially, some people thought that Snowflake had a breach. It is not. It is the way that the Snowflake tenants are configured that the threat actors are going after. So make sure you check out that link to Snowflake security overview and best practices. Make sure you also check out our penetration testing ROI calculator. It's in the description. This is a tool that we've used with clients and colleagues all the time to sell, more advanced or, more than check the box penetration testing upstairs and really show the return on investment of a true penetration test, not necessarily just a check the box penetration test. Link for that is also in the description. We've seen that be extremely helpful for our colleagues, our friends, and our clients. So that's it for this week. I hope you have a great rest of your week, an excellent weekend, and I'll see you next Wednesday.